Clearly, people were not listening.
Talk about Adam to CNN people. You guys really gonna arrest Trump? Do you know this is only going to make him more popular? It's like arresting Tupac. He's just gonna sell more records. Are you stupid?
Donald Trump. I'm talking about they got everybody. Look at that truck.
Let me go ahead and kind of break down how this video is going to go. We're going to talk about the mugshot itself. We're going to talk a little bit how it was that there were actually fake mugshots being circulated. The fact that the man's attorneys have been charged as well, which is completely stupid. I'm going to talk about what it is that's probably going to occur as a result of this. And I'm also going to be explaining why it is that the infected don't seem to understand that conservatives, we wanted the mugshot too. So make sure you guys stick around. Well, guys, I hope this right here is the last video that I do on this topic for a while, seeing how I've done about 4 or 5. And don't worry, I'll link them in the description box. But this right here is just the culmination of what it is that we all knew was going to come. And that right there was, yes, the mugshot. But not only was it the mugshots of Donald Trump, it was also the mugshots that they've been doing all week down in Fulton County of Jenna Ellis, somebody who, quite frankly, is not that popular anymore. But for whatever reason, she was completely left out of all the other investigations. But this is also another reason why it is that this right is probably the... I would say the most deranged of them all. Don't worry, we'll explain in this video. But also Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows and multiple others got mugshots as well. Also, the funny thing about this Trump mugshot was that there was actually another mugshot of Donald Trump circulating last night all over the internet, and people started jumping on it. And of course, people were deleting their tweets after they had tweeted it. However, though, as you guys saw in the very early portion of this video, Chris Rock said, yeah, the only thing you're doing is just making the guy more noticeable. I'm not going to say more popular. I'm going to say more noticeable, especially given the fact that during the Fox News GOP debate, Donald Trump was online with Tucker Carlson, and he got right around 200 million views. Of course, a lot of people were saying that it was mostly impressions. But still, though, it's a lot of viewership, especially given the fact that it was done on X, which is the new name for Twitter. And ironically, Trump decided to post his own mugshot to his own account, leading people to believe that maybe he is, in fact, back on that platform, which is something that people have been waiting for a long time. But with that right there being said, let's go ahead and dive into this video. Yes, I know it was a very, very weird intro, but let's go ahead and break this down. So the district attorney of Fulton County, Fannie Willis, this lady here, she's been trying to indict Trump for a while, as well as the New York case, the 6-1 case. I say 6-1 because of the algorithm, and of course the other case is the one in Mar-a-Lago. I've talked about every single one of these. Don't worry, I will leave the links in the description box, and I'll explain once again why it is that this entire thing will probably bear no fruit at all. But still, at the same time, given the fact that the debate schedule, the courtroom schedule, coincides with some very key dates in the Republican primary, it does, of course, look pretty obvious that it is, in fact, political. I've also explained why it is in other videos, why it is it's also a distraction. Anytime something comes out about Joe Biden, guess what? Something, of course, happens, and, of course, they throw another indictment out there, whether it be Devin Archer, whether it be the House going after one of Biden's DOJ people, of course, Merrick Garland, the people who have been investigating these cases. It seems to me that this is always going to be a great, big, giant distraction. Obviously, they're looking for quick convictions, and they're obviously going to be going out of their way, as I explained in another video, which I know this is beginning to get a little repetitive, but bear with me, that the reason why they're doing this is so that way Republican voters can then turn right back around and ask the question, do we want to vote for somebody who was actually convicted? Even though Republican voters, of course, know that these charges are a bunch of BS. The idea is to try to create a hypocrisy angle. That is the real reason why they're doing this. But of course, conservative voters know that this is a great big giant load of BS. Trump himself, he even sounded off on this.
For America, this should never happen. If you challenge an election, you should be able to challenge an election. I thought the election was a rigged election, a stolen election, and I should have every right to do that. As you know, you have many people that you've been watching over the years do the same thing, whether it's Hillary Clinton or Stacey Abrams or many others. When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. And everybody knows it. I've never had such support. And that goes with the other ones, too. What they're doing is election interference. They're trying to interfere with an election. There's never been anything like it in our country before. This is their way of campaigning. And this is one instance, but you have three other instances. It's election interference. So I want to thank you for being here. We did nothing wrong at all. And we have every right, every single right, to challenge an election that we think is dishonest, that we think is very dishonest. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you very soon.
Let's not forget all the times that Hillary Clinton accused him of being a Russian agent. Let's not forget all the times that Hillary Clinton came out and said that Russia swayed the election. Let's not forget the times that once the 2000 election was decided, that the Democrats in the House and the Senate decided to raise hell about this during the exchange of power, of which, by the way, Al Gore was the vice president at that time. It was actually counting the votes on 1/6 in 2001. Let's not forget about how they did this in 2005 after the 2004 election, alleging that the state of Ohio was stolen and that machines were screwed with then. Let's also not forget all the times that Stacey Abrams comes out here and says that she won the governorship in 2018. By the way, she still believes she won it. Let's not forget all those times there. Fact of the matter is that everything that Donald Trump has done or said, and of course, and even these charges, they're charging him in one case. Some of these charges are over tweets. Yeah, something that, quite frankly, is protected by the First Amendment. Before I really and truly dig into this topic, and before I go ahead and go on about how it is that it was actually Republicans, conservatives who really wanted the mugshot, one of the leading candidates, the person who was supposed to replace Trump in 2028, obviously did not get the memo.
The Field of Dreams and former President Trump being arrested in Georgia.
Well, I'm glad I'm at the Field of Dreams. I'm happy to be here.
You're supposed to come out against the DOJ there, Ron. But then again, though, given the fact that you couldn't raise your hand without looking at somebody else the other night on the debate stage, it does not surprise me that you had this type of response. But leave it to Mark Dice once again to tell us all why it is that this right here is going on and why it is that this was going to backfire.
The girl with green eyes. So I would say by far, Donald Trump's mugshot eclipses all of these. And what's really interesting is what this meme illustrates, because both Trump supporters and Trump haters were extremely excited about the mugshot being released. The Lincoln Project, those never Trump phony Republicans who turned on Donald Trump back in 2016 and then made an absolute killing cashing in on the gullible Democrats who just gave them a bunch of money so that there could be a group of a half a dozen supposed Republicans who were against Trump. They posted this. I would say it's a moronic meme, but the meme itself is actually great. I'm sure they stole it from Republicans because I've actually seen almost identical ones on our side. Their intention behind it, however, is moronic because they are celebrating the release of the mugshot 2. Live reaction to Trump's mugshot photo, they say.
President of the United States to show it to the audience now. This is just a striking image, too.
This guy, however, is even more out of touch. He posted the clip of Kyle Rittenhouse breaking down on the stand, which became a meme, and then captioned it, Republicans after they see the Trump mugshot. No, moron. We were looking forward to it even more than you. Up until yesterday, the most iconic mugshots of all time would probably be a toss-up between Frank Sinatra's and Martin Luther King's. Frank Sinatra's was actually sold, I remember, on a t-shirt back in the 90s at Spencer Gifts. Then, of course, there's this mugshot of Nick Nolte, an actor who I literally can't even name a single movie that he's been in, but his name sounds familiar. He was an actor back in the 80s, maybe the 90s. Still the title holder for the nerdiest.
More about that mugshot here in a second, but I want to go ahead and say this. You see, to me, this mugshot thing, what Dice was bringing up, to me, I think that shows you the divide. You see, the liberals, or I would say the infected, I'm going to call them the infected in this case. And the reason why I'm going to call them the infected is because those who work at the Lincoln Project all claim to be former Republicans. They were part of the crowd that I was talking about in the video that I did on the mask restrictions coming back, or the mask mandates coming back, that these people were not really and truly liberal. They were more authoritarian in nature. They just happened to join the left. They just happened to join the Democratic Party to get their means passed. And of course, they obviously don't seem to understand, because it is in fact the establishment that most people wanted, especially people on the right. They wanted this mugshot because they know that what would end up happening is that Trump would just simply put this stuff on T-shirts, mugs, and all that crap. And next thing you know, he's got an additional $100 to $200 million in campaign donations given to him from small donations and possibly even donors themselves who feel that what's going on here is completely is wrong. And like I said before, I mean, when you, given the fact that you've got so many Democrat politicians that have protested election results in elections that they lost, this right here seems a little bit hypocritical. It kind of goes to the broader theme that they want Republican voters to ask the question, do I really and truly want to vote for somebody who's been charged with a crime, even though the crime is BS? And of course, there's a lot of hypocrisy going on here. I don't think it will work, as I'll explain here momentarily. Quick list of all leaders who have persecuted or tried to imprison their political opponents. Of course, you guys can see the list that Dan Bongino posted. Don't worry, we'll get to Bongino here in a second, because he, quite frankly, had a very interesting take on this yesterday, or we'll get to in a second. But you guys see that. Pol Pot, Stalin, Hitler, you guys see it. It's ridiculous. Castro as well. Typically, when you try to persecute your political opposition, you better have the actual full-throated power to do so, as I'll explain right now, and the fact that they do not have the full power to do so. Okay, so let's go ahead and go through scenario number one. Okay, so if you want to convict him of a crime, you obviously want to imprison him. You obviously want to lock him up. That right there is the gist of things. But even Joe Biden knows that presidents cannot be locked up for things that they did when they were in office unless impeached with conviction. Yes, he was impeached twice, but they never actually convicted him. I think the first impeachment was 51 votes in the Senate. The second one was 57. You need at least 60 to get that. And of course, it takes 66 to get the removal. So right off the bat, the effort is completely futile. Number two, the attempts to try to remove him off the ballot via the 14th Amendment. I already did a video on that where Robert Barnes explained that one, and also Alan Dershowitz, and not to mention the fact that Dershowitz, the king of appeals, has already said on multiple occasions that none of these cases are going to survive, because the minute they go to appeal, something is going to happen, and that thing is going to be, it's probably going to get rejected. But Dan Bongino had a very interesting scenario, a very interesting take on this. Let's go ahead and roll it.
This may sound like a crazy idea, but folks, we're living in crazy times, and crazy times require different, crazy, bold approaches. Fannie Willis wants to be a smart-ass tyrant, little socialist communist like she is down in Fulton County, Georgia. Don't post. Don't post the bond. You know, jail him? Let's elect our first political prisoner. Go ahead. Go to jail. Let the Secret Service shut the entire jail down, and we'll see how long you're willing to keep this charade going. Let them put him in jail for a bit. Folks, I know it sounds crazy. Let the Secret Service shut that entire floor down, because remember, Title 18 USC 3056, and I believe 1752, the Secret Service has the absolute federal authority, the supremacy clause. They can declare anything a federally protected area, even a prison cell. They can clear out that entire wing of the prison and make sure Donald Trump never sees another human being in that prison other than the Secret Service. I wouldn't post. You may think it's a crazy idea. I don't think so. Folks, you've seen people around the world take a stand like this, and it's easy for me to say, I get it. I wouldn't be the one in a prison cell. But you want to send a message? Let's see. Let's see what happens. We should hold protests outside of that prison cell every single day. Don't post. Don't post the bond. Make them put you in jail. and make them show America their asses and show America who they really are. And
Basically, what Bongino was asserting was that what should happen is that the Secret Service should commandeer a room and call the liberals' bluff on this. That there's basically what he was trying to say was, look, go ahead and leave him in there. Go ahead and just stay in the jail for the next week or so, whatever. He wouldn't be in an actual jail cell. What they would probably do is commandeer an office with a couch, all that type of stuff there. The president would be in there with the Secret Service. And of course, what would happen is that they would just bring him in food. Food testers are already there, all that type of stuff. And of course, it eventually goes to the taxpayers' dime. And after a while, people would eventually demand that he be released. That right there is essentially what Bongino is talking about. And the more and more protests show up, the bigger the pressure. Of course, this particular DA, this particular person, Fannie Willis, who, by the way, is county prosecutor, is trying to charge somebody on trying to charge something for something federal, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, county does not even supersede state, let alone federal. So you got to be asking people, what the hell are you doing here? This particular ordeal is just emotionally driven. Let me explain the reason why. In the New York case, they decided that they wanted to put together 37 separate misdemeanors. By the way, those misdemeanors already fell 2 years outside the state statute of limitations. So anytime that would go to appeal, it would immediately get rejected by whoever the hell was in charge, whatever court judge is presiding. Of course, that there being the appellate court. So that one would have gotten rejected. The Mar-a-Lago case, and Barnes explained this one, that there are 2 continuances in there, and because of the scheduling of the judge down there who's handling that case, it more than likely will not be gotten to until sometime after the election. Then you got the 1-6 case, or the 6-1 case, as I like to call it. That particular justice, even though Trump has actually gone on Truth Social and actually antagonized this lady on multiple occasions, she is refusing to go forward with anything as much as even a gag order. She understands that he is running for president. And at the same time, even with her record of charging 6-1 defendants, of course, that there being the people who went to the protest and which turned to a riot, she knows that even with her own reputation, it's not a good idea to try to lock him up right now. I've been saying for a long time that I think their true goal was to get a bunch of convictions and force Republican voters to say, look, do we want to vote for a guy that could be in jail when in reality he more than likely will never go to jail or even spend any actual time, which is also very weird. Why was he posted a $200,000 bond? I kind of agree with Bongino. He probably should have not posted bond or actually rejected it outright. But then again, though, at the same time, here we are. Of course, you guys can see this right here is once again the divide. And of course, to go on top of the divide, you guys can obviously see that liberals don't seem to understand that Republicans wanted the mugshot too, because they know it gives him free press. They know that it actually helps him out. And they also know that that mugshot is going to be on just about every single, and I mean every single t-shirt out there. And the man's probably going to get a good couple $100 million in donations here in the next couple of weeks. Why does this backfire? Why is it that the infected don't seem to understand that this entire mugshot thing was exactly what it was they wanted? Well, it goes back to what Jonathan Haidt said. Conservatives and moderates understand liberals, but liberals do not understand conservatives and moderates. And I would even argue that the uniparty establishment, which is so completely out of touch with American culture and the American people, I think that they miscalculated the little hell out of this one. So let me go ahead and tell you what happened. I'm not going to sit here and say that Trump's going to win the 2024 presidency. I'm not going to say that at all, even though I actually think he will, mostly due to the fact that he's polling stronger than what he was in 2020. I'm not going to sit here and say that at all. What I will say is this here. You're definitely going to see an uptick in overall social alienation. People are not going to want to obey what the hell people in authority want to say, which, by the way, I kind of thought was going to be coming anyway. I've been talking a lot more about that recently. And the fact of the matter is this. You just gave him the nomination, and after a while, when people, including even classical libs, when they see that, guess what, the DOJ is being used for political means, chances are you're going to get guys like this.
A big impact in New York. I think the New York prosecution is a travesty as well. I've written about that. I did a piece in the Wall Street Journal about that. I think it was an awful case. I think, the House has the jurisdiction, the committee has a jurisdiction to do it. I don't know that it changes the course of the prosecution. I do think one of the things that really bothers me is, Democrats out there saying that they don't want this to be political. They have not answered the question as to why it took nearly 4 years to bring this case. I don't think there's a good answer to it. And dropping this case in the middle of election season, asking former President Trump to be, in 3 or 4 potential trials during the height of election
Crazy.
season, I just smacks too much of politics to me. And I don't think Democrats can claim that there's no politics here.
Yep.
Especially when you take headshots and you run on it when you're going for re-election.
The timing of it, and like you said, all these crazy counts, they just need one conviction. So they're slapping him with all these counts. Really quickly, yes or no, will this become a federal case?
I think it's likely to, at least for some of the defendants, to meet the removal, Ainsley, the removal requirements. So I think some of the defendants could get a removal. I think you're hinting at a very important question we didn't touch on, which is that because you've got 19 defendants, some of them will have a case for federal removal, some not. I think it's going to be almost impossible to get this case tried before the election.
I think
New York won't be tried before the election, and I think the other two, there are real doubts about whether you will get to those before the election.
Julian, give you credit. You, like Alan Dershowitz, said, hey, I'm not going to vote for Trump. I never will, never have.
But you're fair.
But you're fair. The law is the law. Thank you so much.
And I wish more of us were like
Same guy, by the way, also broke down the case, and he broke down the Georgia situation, and he also explained why it was that it had so many problems, especially given Fannie Willis and her possible conflicts of interest, which, by the way, like I said, I'm going to leave that in the description box because I didn't want to make a very long video today. But here's the deal. What this is going to ultimately lead to is a low turnout election. What you're going to have is you're going to have probably the entire conservative base going out there against the liberal coalition. Really quick, this gentleman right here, who, by the way, I cannot show you the full video because he was wearing a shirt that said N-words for Trump, which was very, very weird. And, of course, you saw at the very, very beginning, you had a lot of people out there basically saying free Trump. That right there was in a very, very poor section of Georgia, a very, very poor section outside of Atlanta. Last I checked, those people typically don't tend to get politically involved, but once you start seeing somebody get indicted for something that they know is BS, next thing you know, people begin to get involved. I have been saying for a long time that Trump would actually be the person that would actually increase those numbers of black voters, and I suspect that will occur, seeing how it is that he is on the ballot in 2024. Fact of the matter is that 2024 is probably going to be a very, very low turnout election, where the side that's on the right is probably going to vote in absolute droves. And next thing you know, fortifications are not going to be able to stop the actual election result that's to come that night. Now, like I said, this is not an actual prediction. I told you guys I was not going to make a prediction because God knows what may happen. But the fact of the matter is that you're just simply causing this awakening that's going on in the nation. You're just simply causing it to get much, much bigger. It's starting to really and truly amplify. And once it starts to amplify, one side begins to get black-pilled while the other side has been completely, totally white-pilled. That right there is going to be a problem. This right here to me is just another action by a dying institution, a dying establishment that is screaming its loudest before it finally goes out. With that right there being said, guys, make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts. Even those of you who disagree, go right ahead and leave it in the comment section, and I'll see you guys later.